I'm Jessie McConville from Mr. Farrar's second period class, and I'm going to be working through the FRQ problem from 2007, number 3. So this problem is a tabular problem. Okay, so let's look at what h of x. So h of x is equal to f of g minus 6. So between 1 and 3, so what I'm going to do is plug 1 and 3 into both of these. We'll see where we get. Okay, so g of 1 is 2. So we're looking at f of 2 minus 6. So this is at 1 and at 3. And then we're having f of, so if we're plugging in 3, it would be g of 3, which would be 4. So we have f of 4 minus 6. So f of 2 is 9, and f of 4 is negative 1. So we have 3 and negative 7. So h of x at 1 is going to be 3, and h of x at 3 is going to be negative 7. So we know that between 1 and 3 it goes from 3 to negative 7, and we don't know how many times, at points of inflection between those points, but we know it must hit every point between there. So h of r has to hit negative 5, intermediate value theorem. So basically what we were able to find through here is that we have 2 points now on the h of x. We have 1, 3, and we have 3, negative 7. So part B is asking us for some value in between 1 and 3, some x value. There's going to be a slope of negative 5. Prime of c. Slope is going to equal negative 5. So we have to solve for what the slope is between these. So we have h of 3, which is our y value. So we're going to have, it's y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So we have negative 7 minus 3 over 3 minus 1, negative 10. 2 is equal to negative 5. So, by the mean value theorem, we were able to solve that the mean slope between these 2 points is negative 5. One thing that's kind of difficult about this question is part A and B are both explain why questions, which can be a little bit tough in math, but you don't need to overthink that. They just want to see one sentence, especially when this is about like line stuff. You want to say that it's continuous, or for part A you want to say it's continuous and differentiable for part D, and they want you to show your understanding with the theorem. So in part A they're really looking for you to bring in the intermediate value theorem and show how that applies to this question, and for B the mean value theorem. So you get 1 point for each of those parts for just explaining that in a sentence those theorems and basically how you came to your answer. But you also get a point for just the math part of it. So solving for part A, it's solving for h of 1 and h of 3, and for part B, it's just being able to come up with the slope for negative 5. So if you can't remember the theorems, you don't know how to explain, you might not get that second point for using the mean value theorem and intermediate value theorem. But I mean, you can still explain the best you can, saying it's continuous and stuff, but you will still get credit by doing the math and showing that you know how to apply and what this is asking for, and then h of x, and solve it. Yeah. Here's the work for part C. We're given this integral, and we're asked to find, we want w prime of 3, so we need to find the derivative of this. So basically we plug g of x in, and we get f of g of x, and then we have to multiply, doing the chain rule, of the g prime of x. And so this is what we're going to want to solve for, and we're given an x value of 3, so we plug that in. G of 3 is 4, g prime of 3 is 2, so f of 4 times 2. F of 4 is -1 times 2 is -2. So the College Board gives credit for 2 different parts of this answer. They're looking for you to be able to set out and solve for this correctly from the integration, especially using the chain rule, that you get these 3 parts right, and then that you plug them in and get the correct answer. So it's just those 2 points. You want to make sure that you're working out all of this. You don't want to go straight to numbers. You want to solve this, plug this in forms of f(x) and g of x. Inverse functions. So the g inverse of x is going to mean that every x value of g, gives you a y value, g of x, so it's going to be flipped. The y values and the x values are just going to switch. So it's asking for at x equals 2. So g of 2 is 3. So the inverse, g inverse of 3 is going to give us 2. But what we want to find is what g of, I'll make sure I'm writing this big, but what we want to find is what y value is going to be 2, because then in the inverse it's going to be the x value. So g of x equals 2, g inverse of 2 equals x. So I'm just going to look down the g of x, and there it is. First one, g of 1 is equal to 2. So then that means that inverse g of 2 is equal to 1. So if we're going to, y is equal to g inverse of x is 2, g inverse of 2 is 1, so then y equals, so we're going to need to find the inverse 2 prime. So that is going to be 1 over 1 over g prime of g inverse of 2. So we solve g inverse of 2 is 1, so it's 1 over g prime of 1, and then we'll look back, g prime of 1 is 5, so then it's 1 over 5. That's going to be the slope at g inverse of 2. So to figure out that the slope is 1/5, you're going to plug it into point slope form. You plug it into point slope form, you just y minus the y value, 1/5, x minus the x value. And so for this problem, you're going to get 1 point for, you get a point just for solving for this. So even if you don't know how to get the slope, it's okay. You still get points for this. So it can be a little overwhelming sometimes if you don't know how to get to the final step, but do all the work for the in-between steps that you can, because most times you'll get points for that. You got it on the AP test. I don't know, haven't taken it yet. Hopefully that goes well. We'll see. This will help, being familiar with how they grade it, how they're looking to give points, managing your time, and then we'll get a 5. That's the goal, yep. Good luck. Thank you. Good night.